giant chute appeared 10 kilometers up in the clear Kazakh sky, followed a few seconds later by a boom, the delayed sound of it deploying. Then a frenzied dash to jump into vehicles and head out over bumpy terrain to find the re-entry capsule. Charred black after being superheated coming into the atmosphere, the recovery crew worked to get each space traveler out one at a time. First, the Russian commander, Oleg Kononenko, then American Anne McLean, who seemed positively pumped.
How do you feel, Anne?
Outstanding.
Really?
Ready to go again.
David Saint-Jacques was the last to emerge and tried to force a smile, but his body was telling him otherwise. It's pretty standard to feel sick, as everything from your circulation system to your sense of balance is out of whack after 6 months of weightlessness.
Welcome back.
After a stop at the medical tent, though, he found the strength to pause briefly to talk about what he was experiencing.
Just fell back from the sky. Gravity is not my friend. But you know what's striking me is the smell of grass, the smell of the wild grass here. It's just beautiful.
The astronauts didn't linger on the ground. They were quickly on their way home, leaving the recovery crew to deal with the capsule.
Well, it's incredible we can come right up and almost touch this, not that I'm going to, but it really does look like it went right through a blast furnace. And have a look at these windows here. Just gives you an idea of just how much heat this was subjected to on re-entry.
Given how much money Canada contributes to the International Space Station, flights for Canadian astronauts only come up every few years. And with new private American-built rockets emerging, the next time a Canadian flies, it may not be on a Soyuz. So, for Canada, a scene like this, in the middle of the Kazakh steppes, may not happen again anytime soon. Chris Brown, CBC News in central Kazakhstan.
What a ride. So as you can see, David Saint-Jacques felt pretty rough for a while there after landing. But beyond that, there is a long road to recovery. Vicodopia examines just what his body is likely to go through.
Floating in near-zero gravity is like aging in hyperspeed, but David Saint-Jacques and other astronauts only feel it when they return to Earth.
I remember picking up the helmet of my spacesuit and wondering who put bricks in my helmet bag.
Dave Williams has been there after returning from his mission to the space station. Without the resistance of gravity, blood pressure drops, muscles start to shrink, and bone density decreases, despite daily exercise.
It gets a lot better after that. We go into a rehabilitation program, and generally it can take 1 to 1.5 times the length of the mission to get back into shape. So if you're in space for 6 months, it'll take 6 to 9 months to get back to normal.
There are other microcellular effects scientists are only starting to understand. When the U.S.'s Scott Kelly returned to Earth, they compared his chromosomes to his genetic twin and found they'd changed in unexpected ways. Saint-Jacques has been measuring his blood circulation as well as radiation levels from solar storms to see how it affects his arteries. Now that he's on the ground, this scientist will continue the tests this weekend.
Going beyond the space station, the radiation effects are going to be dramatically increased. It's not just cancer we have to worry about, it's cardiovascular disease as well.
As humans contemplate longer periods in space and exploration deeper into the galaxy, the limits of human endurance will face new challenges. Vicodopia, CBC News, Toronto.
So let's talk about how this country prepares for those new challenges and what the future has in store. Bob McDonald joins us now, host of CBC Radio's Quirks and Quarks. So Bob, what's next? I mean, you know, there are new Canadian astronauts in the pipe. They're training for what exactly?
Well, Andrew, Jeremy Hansen is the next one in line to go up into space. He'll go up to the International Space Station, but Canada will continue to have a role in space in the future as we go back to the moon. We're going to provide another Canadarm3, that will be part of a smaller space station that will be in orbit around the moon. And this new Canadarm will be used to grab spaceships that go from the Earth to the moon, also going down to the moon's surface, bringing in cargo vessels and all of that. And that means that Canadian astronauts will also also have seats on rides to the moon in the distant future within the next decade or so. So we will probably see Canadian boots on the moon. So we'll be providing technology and we'll be providing astronauts. And also what people don't talk about very much, we'll also be providing science, because Canada is also really good at building scientific instruments. We have satellites like RadarSat that just went up recently that looks down at the Earth, and we have scientific instruments that go to the other planets like Mars. So we'll be involved in the space program like we always have, with science, with robotics, and with astronauts. So the journey continues.
And very quickly, I got to ask you, because right around the same time as the Soyuz capsule was touching back down, there was the blast off and touchdown of SpaceX's Falcon Heavy. Are you hopeful for the private sector's involvement in all of this? Because there was that sort of spectacular crash landing too, right?
And as you can see on our screen, it looks like our center core did not make it.
Well, SpaceX is going to continue. I mean, sure, they have mishaps, but in the early days of the space program, there were mishaps as well. So we're going to see two parallel tracks. NASA's going to go back to the moon, so is SpaceX, and SpaceX is talking about going even further all the way to Mars. So it's going to be an interesting competition in the future.
Bob McDonald, always very good to talk to you. Thanks so much.
Okay, Andrew.